So my name's Roshni and I'm currently a foundation dentist working in Leicester. So I studied my BDS at Birmingham and I did my intercalation at King's. I intercalated in psychology with basic medical sciences between third year and fourth year. Combination of things that made me want to intercalate. So firstly was the fact that I was really interested in psychology, and I appreciated that link between psychology and dentistry, and I wanted to know more. Then I did have an interest in research, and I knew that during BDS years it's such a jam-packed curriculum, there's so much to cover, both clinical and non-clinical, that I knew that there was limited scope to really explore research and academics within the degree, as well as doing the clinical side of things. So this year provided me with that perfect opportunity to do exactly that. I also was really interested in seeing what another uni was like. So I absolutely love Birmingham. It's so close to my heart. I really enjoyed my time there. But similarly, I really loved the idea that I could go to a completely different university in a completely different city. I'm from London, so I got to spend some time at home with my family, and really just enjoy a new city and see what it was like to study a BSc rather than a BDS. So I thought that was another great reason to intercalate. And I think those three reasons combined were enough for me to justify that year out, and just enjoy it and take a nice break. So I always had an interest in psychology because when I was studying my BDS at Birmingham in second year, we had a module which was called Psychology as Applied to Dentistry. And I think by virtue of really enjoying it, I naturally did really well in it, which made me consider applying for it. And also the fact that I think I appreciated strongly the link between psychology and dentistry, and how I could use my skills from this intercalation year and my knowledge to improve my dental practice. And I think that's exactly what happened in the end. So it was great. It was an amazing opportunity to see what it was like as well, to do a lot of self-directed learning, because at university, especially Manchester's quite different because it's PBL, so you have a lot of independent learning already. But with Birmingham, it was very didactic in teaching, so it was very lecture based. It was very led by clinicians and consultants, and you kind of followed that knowledge path. But with the intercalation year, my contact hours were technically Monday to Wednesday, 10 until 1. So 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I had about 9 official contact hours in the week. And that didn't go to say that I was not doing anything for the rest of the week. It meant that the rest of the week was made up of my own independent reading, my own independent research and work. So it gave me a completely different perspective on what university could be like. And it really gave me independence to see how I would deal with studying in that way. So it was a great way for me to develop as a person as well. So I cannot put that into one sentence. So again, I'll split it up. The first thing I learned was that the link between psychology and dentistry. So where I really appreciated that link, this course that I did specifically gave me that flexibility to actually explore that link. So my course was made up of myself and 32 other medical students. I was the only dentist. But what the course let me do was, in every assignment that I did, was link it back to dentistry. So I'll give you an example. And one module was called cognitive neuropsychology. So that's all about how the brain works, and they explore this through MRI scanning, fMRI scanning, that kind of thing. All the coursework was simply to create a presentation on a scientifically approved paper that's been written in the last 5 years, summarize it and evaluate it and critically appraise it. And it could be on absolutely anything in the world of cognitive neuropsychology. So the paper that I found was a paper that was showing the effects of dental phobia on a patient's fMRI scan of the brain. So it showed exactly what parts of the brain were fired up when someone walks into the dentist with a fear of the dentist. And that kind of proves which parts of the brain are responsible for provoking a fear response, such as the amygdala and the hippocampus, which helps with memory and things like that. So there was always a way that I could link psychology and dentistry. So that's definitely the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned, as I said, is a lot about myself. I developed a lot as a person. So I learned how to work independently. I learned how to structure my own time, and I learned how to choose for myself what I wanted to read and what I didn't want to read. Yes, there was a reading list, but that was for guidance only. And if you wanted to read your own papers and include them in your essays, by all means you could. So it really gave you that independence that sometimes you don't get when you're studying your BDS, especially in the early years. The third thing I learned was a lot about academics and scientific papers and research, how to write a paper. No, I feel like until you possibly do your elective, I know that was the case in Birmingham at least, you never actually know how to write an abstract. You don't know how to write an introduction and methods, your results, etc. So having that experience through a dissertation of writing your own paper and then potentially even following it through to publication was something really valuable and something that I perhaps would be less confident to do now if I hadn't done this year. And I think on a less serious but equally as important note, I learned that dentistry is not life. Teeth are not the world. I think it's really easy, especially if you go straight from A levels to university, to get really bogged down in the fact that dentistry is your career. And whilst it is your career and it will always be a massive part of your life, I think remembering and reminding yourself that a work-life balance is so important, that it's important to be a wider person beyond dentistry is crucial to not only keep your mental health, but to also just make you a better person and a more well-rounded person that ultimately your patients are going to appreciate more than just someone who cares about their teeth. So I think just that reminder through a lighter degree, arguably, and the ability to do other things during that year. So make new friends, explore a new city. I was part of a dance show and performed at the Indigo O2 that year. So I was arguably, again, dancing more than I was studying at times. Just made me a happier person. I think even when I went back to Birmingham, I had clinicians actually approach me and say that themselves. So clearly it did something to me. So I hope it would do the same for other people who choose to intercalate. The question that my friends asked me when I intercalate, my friends on BDS asked me, they said, "Oh, why are you doing this? You're leaving me." And, you know, some of them, I got really upset, some of them got really upset. And initially I applied, and obviously there's no guarantee that you'll be accepted. So I said, let's apply. I've got nothing to lose by applying. And if I get the offer, then I can make that decision. And when I got the offer, I realized this is an opportunity that now I have and I don't want to waste. So that's why that's what pushed me to take it. But definitely the hardest thing is taking that step to leave your friends, especially in a course where you spend so long with them. You spend Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, basically with them. Some of you live with each other already, and then and to drop down a year effectively is daunting. It's horrible, but I suppose the things that were my saving graces were that at Birmingham there's a buddy scheme. So generally through that buddy scheme where you're partnered up with someone in the year below, so you support them, you naturally get to know the year below quite well. So I was already quite friendly with the year below. They're not complete strangers to me. So I wasn't completely terrified of joining their year. They were quite excited to have me and they were a really lovely year. So that was a plus. The other plus was, you know, I still, when I returned, so it was my BDS 4 and it was my original year's BDS 5, I still got to live with them. So I still, you know, I could walk to the dental hospital with them. Yes, I wasn't going to the same lectures, granted, but I could still go with them. I could still come back with them. I could still spend my evenings with them for that year. Yes, 100%. So I think where I intercalated, it was not unfamiliar, not completely unknown to Birmingham. So I can only speak for Birmingham here. But it was something that they really supported. They wanted you to, they encouraged you to get involved in research, to do something different. I thought initially that when I asked to intercalate, they might say no, because if you do intercalate, Birmingham encourage you to intercalate between second and third year, because in third year you start seeing patients and building up a patient base, and they ideally don't want you to leave that patient base after a year. So I thought it might be a struggle, but when I explained my reasoning and that, you know, I hadn't really considered it, again, because of potentially a lack of information and a lack of publicity about it. So that led to me finding out about it a little bit later, and thinking about it a little bit later. They were really understanding. So I asked to apply to intercalate in the final week of my second year, actually. And so I knew that obviously I'd missed the deadline to intercalate for that year coming, but I said, can I intercalate in advance, apply to intercalate in advance for after I complete my third year. So the process, specifically what happened was I first approached my head of welfare and my head of school directly, and I emailed both of them and I said, this is just an initial inquiry to see if it's feasible or not. And they were incredible in that they sent out a chain email to every head of department effectively and said, based on the curriculum that Birmingham have, is it feasible for someone to intercalate between third and fourth year? So once I had a response from every single head of department, caused a bit of a stir, and they all agreed, which was a 2-week time frame roughly. They gave me the go ahead. They said they looked at my record so far, they looked at my exam performances, how I had been doing on on lab simulation in second year as a reflection of how I might fare in third year on clinic. And once they were happy that I was making sufficient progress and I wasn't struggling in any particular way that could potentially make me held back, they were really supportive in just saying go for it. They were really caring in that I had a one-on-one interview with the head and the dean and the deputy head, just asking really practical things, to be fair, you know, which university are you considering applying to, what course are you considering applying to, what information do you need from us, and as simple as, well, you want to apply to King's, where will you stay in London, how will you finance this? They just wanted to know that I'd had a logical thought process to this and I'd thought about everything and I wasn't just making a whimsical decision. And once they were happy with that, they literally just said to me, let us know what you need, we're here to support you, let us know what you need for your application, and moving forward we'll get you all of that information. So, and that's exactly what they did. And in terms of catching up, when I came back, so they said, we'll let you intercalate on the grounds that during your third year, you know, you do well on clinic, you don't struggle too much, you know, you progress how we'd like you to, as they'd expect from any student. And then they said, on that basis, we will encourage you to do some simulation work before you return in fourth year, just so that where I've had a year break on clinic, I was familiar again with picking up a drill and things like that. So I was really up for that, because I think that's a sensible thing to do. After a year of not touching a tooth, I wouldn't really feel safe to then be practicing on patients. I love this question. So I always thought that my aim was for my dissertation to be turned into a publication. I always had that in my head that I wanted to do that. And yes, a lot of the dissertations that were written were either a group project, which was already going to be turned into a publication, or they were so spectacular that, yeah, they managed to be turned into publications. Unfortunately, mine wasn't, due to a few reasons, due to my sample size, due to the validity of my study, which I reflected on a lot. But it was a good learning curve in knowing how to write a research paper, a primary research paper. And then what happened is I realised that, yes, this wasn't going to be the opportunity that I wanted it to be. And when you do your dissertation, you're given a supervisor who supports you during your dissertation, advises you, you send them drafts, they give you constructive feedback, etc. And I had a really good relationship with my supervisor, and she was one of the leads in the health psychology department at Guy's Hospital. So towards the end of my intercalation year, I sent her an email and I said, I know that my dissertation won't necessarily be turned into a publication. But if you have any research projects that are ongoing that you think I might be able to be involved with, or I might be interested in, then please let me know. And literally within 24 hours, she replied saying, I have a student that I'm supervising for her PhD. She's doing a systematic review on chronic health behaviours. It was chronic illness and coping strategies, and how self-love can actually help you cope with chronic illnesses rather than things like medication. And it was part of her PhD, but she said that she needed kind of a second in command for the paper. And she said, would you be interested? So I said, of course. And where my dissertation was a primary research study, so that means I was actually going out there and collecting the data myself, this was an opportunity to see how a systematic review, so a secondary research paper, worked, where a systematic review is one where you collate lots of different studies and you find the overall conclusion from those studies, rather than collecting the primary data yourself, if that makes sense. So I obviously took it on hand with both hands, and I had some time because it was towards the end of my intercalation year before I returned to Birmingham. And so I met up with this PhD student. She explained what I had to do, and that paper then went on and got published, and I became second author of that paper. So yes, I did get that research opportunity from my intercalation year directly. But then I got my second research opportunity where, again, my dissertation didn't necessarily turn into a publication, but what it allowed me to be was very comfortable with primary research and writing primary research. So when I returned to BDS, and at Birmingham you do an elective project, which is a write-up, I did my elective project on the evidence base of charcoal-based toothpaste, and it was primary research on patients' perceptions of charcoal-based toothpaste. From this, I believe I did well because I knew how to write a research paper, I knew how to structure a research paper, I knew how to make my study more valid based on what I'd learned from my dissertation. So I think that's what led me to success with my elective. And then I worked with some DCT students to write a journal article for the British Society of Dental Hygiene and Therapy on charcoal-based toothpaste, and they included my research into that. And again, that was my second publication. And I think that I wouldn't have got that second publication, where I was third author for that one, well, second, and they were joint first. I wouldn't have got that if, again, I didn't know how to write a primary research paper in the first place. And then I applied for MUDRSoc's poster prize with it and ended up winning that as well. So shout out to you guys. So that was, again, an amazing opportunity, and it gave me a chance to turn my paper into my research into a poster, and from there win a prize. So yeah, lots of opportunities. So my first piece of advice is do it. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really passionate about it. It was a great experience. I loved every bit of it, from learning more about psychology to applying it to dentistry, to having a lot of fun, meeting new friends, doing things outside of the degree. So if you're considering applying, look into it, make an informed decision, speak to me, speak to other people who have intercalated and gone through it, particularly at your uni, for individual support and advice, just to get a better idea of what it entails. My other piece of advice is almost the opposite of that, in that do not just do it for the sake of it. Don't do a BSc or an intercalation because you think it will make you more employable, or you think that you'll make money from nothing except for the fact that you have an interest in the course that you're going to intercalate in. Because if you don't enjoy the subject that you choose, you will hate the year. It's a lot of reading. It seems like fun. I used to joke and say it was my gap year that I never took, but when it was intense, it was really intense. So when I was revising in the library, it would be long hours. It's a lot of independent reading. As you said, it's a lot of finding that internal motivation to be independent and do the work yourself and not leave it till the last minute. And if you're not enjoying something, that is going to be such a struggle on a daily basis. So definitely don't do it for any other reason than the fact that you want to do it because you love the subject and you're interested in academia, research, and applying these things to dentistry. And 2 more tips. One more tip is, I think it's great if you can do something that is relevant to dentistry, just because ultimately, hopefully you'll go back to your BDS and you'll be able to take those skills. You'll always get transferable skills, but if the topic is relevant to dentistry, I think that's a bonus, such as something like psychology, even things like endocrinology, human anatomy is massively valuable, especially if you're considering something like max fax. It'll give you a better understanding of not only the head and neck, but other parts of the body to help you in that way. And then my final tip is, if you do intercalate and you do choose to apply, be organised, be proactive. The deadlines for every university are different. The application process is different. Again, try to speak to those people. I encourage going to another uni as well, if you can, just because it's a different experience. And you're already going to do 5 years at one university, so why not try another one while you can, and just make new connections and new links, and then enjoy it and have fun and try not to worry about returning and just live in the moment for that year, because you'll never get it back. I'm close.